Nebraska's Supreme Court does more than just decide legal cases. The judicial branch also focuses on ways to make the courts more effective, efficient, and even transparent. Supreme Court Chief Justice Mike Heavican talks with NET News about the issues and challenges facing the courts as we begin another season of Speaking of Nebraska. This is Speaking of Nebraska. Hello, I'm NET News Director Dennis Kellogg. We like to think of this program as a statewide discussion about issues that affect all of us. This spring, we'll be going in-depth on topics like the farm economy, teen suicide, and Yazidi refugees in our state. And that's just to name a few. We begin, though, with a discussion about justice and the law through the lens of the Chief Justice of Nebraska's Supreme Court, Mike Heavican. Chief Justice Heavican earned his law degree from the University of Nebraska College of Law in 1974. Throughout his career, he would serve as Lancaster County Attorney for a decade and as U.S. Attorney for the District of Nebraska for 5 years. He was appointed as Chief Justice of the Nebraska Supreme Court by Governor Dave Heineman in 2006 and has served in that position since then. Chief Justice Heavican sat down with me recently in the Supreme Court for a wide-ranging interview on our judicial system, his priorities, and the challenges ahead. Well, Chief Justice, we're sitting here in this ornate courtroom. Do you ever take the time to sit back and think about the history in this room and some of the great legal minds of the state that have worked here over the decades?
Absolutely. I don't think you can be in this courtroom very long or very often without thinking about the historical context of the room itself and the building itself. And it's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to have this great job, and it is part, obviously, of the sterling legal tradition of Nebraska.
When you were appointed, Governor Heineman was quoted as saying that he thought you were someone who would not make law from the bench. And obviously, judicial activism is something that we hear a lot about, especially today. We've heard it for years and years. Do you think that's an issue? Do you think judges today are making the law instead of interpreting it?
The only comment I can make on that is that I would say that the Nebraska Supreme Court is very careful as we approach the law, and you will frequently see in our opinions essentially the admonition that we are not the legislature. We try to interpret what the legislature has said, but we are not going to ambitiously write our own law.
So Nebraska is facing what's been called on the floor of the legislature a crisis when it comes to our prisons. Overcrowding, over 160% capacity as we speak right now. So knowing our prisons are overcrowded, when a judge goes to make a sentence, should he or she take that into consideration, whether they determine whether it's incarceration or probation?
The judge has to look at every case individually and sentence within the range that the legislature has allowed or has commanded. The judge takes a lot of things into consideration, and those are essentially listed statutorily, the background of the individual and ultimately to protection and safety of the public. And those are the kinds of balancing things a judge has to do. And then when we look at that, we essentially say, is the judge within the range that the legislature has said the judge should be in, and has the judge taken into consideration all of those things that the legislature insisted upon? Nowhere in those guidelines does it say take into consideration that the prisons are full. But obviously the legislature has done some things to constrict what judges do. For example, they have made many or most lower class felonies so that there is a presumption that those folks get probation. So our judges work with that in mind.
So Let's talk a little bit about problem-solving courts, because that's one alternative that's been developed, and one of the more long-term ones has been the drug courts. These are courts where people go through an intensive program with lots of supervision in hopes that you rehabilitate them instead of putting them in prison. So they've been around for a while. Can we call the experiment with drug courts a success at this point?
I think we can. Drug courts are very judge intensive. The judge takes a very active role in making sure that participants in drug court stay drug free, get a job, do all the kinds of rehabilitative things that folks need to do in order to become productive citizens. We now have drug courts and some other specialty courts in all 12 of our judicial districts. We have lots more judges doing this than used to do it. They don't get any extra money for doing it. They are convinced that they simply don't want to see these folks coming back to their court again, a kind of revolving door kind of situation. And I think largely those courts have been positive. We measure recidivism. In other words, we try to measure how successful the courts have been, and generally that those measures have been good.
And another type of that court that you said you would like to see is mental health courts, but the resources aren't there at this point to do that. What are the mental health issues that you've seen that leads you to believe that that would be another successful type of problem-solving court?
I think that in this building and in legislative hearings, over and over the legislature has heard that our jails are full of mentally ill people, people who have committed crimes, whatever they may be, trespassing or burglary or many different kinds of crimes, are in fact mentally ill, or they have some personality disorders. And that in order to correct those situations, if you will, those individuals really need to be treated and not imprisoned. Punishment isn't what is going to help someone who is mentally ill. It is treatment for the mental illness.
Speaking with Chief Justice Mike Heavican of the Nebraska Supreme Court on Speaking of Nebraska. So you said the mental health courts probably aren't doable right now because of a lack of resources. And last year, you were pretty blunt when you came out and talked about the governor's budget and said some of the cuts that were being proposed, or the amount of cuts, would set the judicial branch back. How do you think we're doing this year? Are we doing any better on funding the courts?
I think we are doing better. Everybody in state government knows and understands that money is tight, and that we all have to be careful with the way we spend money. The argument that I tried to put together in last year's State of the Judiciary, and to a certain extent this year and in other past years, is that programs like drug courts, our intensive probation supervision programs, reentry supervision programs are programs that are very cost effective. They are much more cost effective than warehousing folks in prison. They do cost money, they do take resources, they take more judge time, and ultimately they take more judges. But all of that is a good investment, and ultimately, over time, those elements will produce fewer numbers of people in our prisons.
And when people often think about probation, they think about something that happens after somebody gets out of prison. Mm-hmm. But is there more that we should be doing while that person is in prison to make sure that they have a better chance of success and we're not starting from zero when they get out of prison?
Almost everybody who goes to prison is going to come out at some point in time, and they are going to be back in our neighborhoods and our communities. And if we want to protect our neighborhoods and communities, we have to put the needed resources into making sure that these folks are rehabilitated and that they are they are going to have less of a chance to harm their neighbors, to burglarize, to rob, to assault, and so forth. So, yes, those that kind of rehabilitation has to be funded somewhere at some point in time. Otherwise, these people are going to be back in prison again, and they're going to be back in prison after they have caused somebody great damage.
One of the things it seems like you've tried to do is get the court out of the courtroom sometimes. You've done that by taking oral arguments to high schools in Millard and Grand Island, Scotts Bluff coming up, I think. But last year, you went back to Schuyler High School, and I say back because that's your high school. Was that a conscious decision for you to do it? And what was it like for you to walk back there as Chief Justice, back into those halls?
Well, that was a conscious decision on my part, and I guess I drugged the rest of the court with me because it is where I graduated from, but it is also kind of a special high school. It has a lot of minority kids these days, and a lot of folks who either don't speak English or English is not their first language. And we always want to reach out to young people who come from backgrounds who may not have a great advantage from some of their backgrounds. So that's kind of why we went to Schuyler High School. It was fun to go back. I have to honestly say I can count on one hand the number of times I've been back there in the last over 50 years, but it was a lot of fun, and we had a great exchange with the students after the questions, after oral arguments. So I hope it was an educational experience for everybody involved. I always say when we go to a high school, it's always an education experience for the court and for us as judges. And I think that was true in Schuyler. I thought it was very successful.
And along those lines of opening up the court, you've been a supporter of opening up Nebraska's courts through the media, with cameras in the courtroom, microphones in the courtrooms. I think some judges probably don't like that. Why do you think it's important?
It's important because in this day and age, I think people, especially young people, want to get their news, they want to get intellectual input from their computers and TV screens. So an open courtroom today is different than an open courtroom in 1890. In 1890, courts were the center of their communities, and when folks came to town to trade or buy groceries or whatever, they might end their day by visiting the courtroom just to see how the courts were functioning. And today, obviously, nobody does that. The courtrooms are all open, but to be really open in the 21st century, you need that electronic access to the courts. So we push that very much. When I became Chief Justice, I heard lots of comments from the bar and attorneys that we were the forgotten branch of government. We may still be the forgotten branch of government, but I like to think we are less forgotten than we used to be. We will always be the forgotten branch of government if we won't at least let TV cameras into our courtrooms.
I want to ask you about caseloads for judges. The legislature is considering a bill right now to add another district court judge in Douglas County. Do you think that we are doing enough right now when it comes to judges and caseloads?
We monitor caseloads and deal with resources all the time. Our busiest judges are in Omaha primarily, but in our urban areas. The number of cases in our courts is gradually going down, but it is going up in our urban areas. So trying to get resources in the right place is a very difficult thing. It becomes, unfortunately, kind of a rural-urban issue, like many other issues in this state. So we have to try to educate people about caseloads and where we are busy and where we are not busy, And we have to get resources to the places where we are busiest, and right now that is in Douglas County.
Let's look at it from a national perspective with the U.S. Supreme Court. The last couple of nominees, as they've gone through that process and the hearings, they seem to at times be a little bit chaotic and also political. Mm-hmm. Do you think those hearings have eroded the public trust in our court system?
That is a little bit difficult thing to comment. I think it is an unfortunate part of the way that federal judges are appointed and the fact that they have lifetime tenures. So there's absolutely no accountability in the federal system, or I shouldn't say no, but there's almost no accountability in the federal system. The emphasis is completely on judicial independence. So the only point in that system where you can screen, if you will, judges is that point of appointment, the approval by the Senate. So that has become an unfortunate focal point. I think that both sides of the political spectrum need to rethink their approaches to that appointment process. 50 years ago, none of those kinds of contentious hearings would have happened, and unfortunately they happen for every appointment to the Supreme Court now. Nebraska uses a different system, and most states do use different systems. In Nebraska, there's a lot more accountability to the judicial system. We have a lot of judicial independence, but ultimately our judges have to stand for retention 3 years after they are initially appointed, and then for 6-year terms after that. So every 6 years, every citizen in a particular district gets to vote whether or not that judge should be retained in office.
So in your particular case, you've led the Supreme Court for 13 years as Chief Justice. You're in your 70s. What's ahead for you?
Well, I hope there is still some more time to be the Chief Justice. Obviously, we all have to leave our jobs one way or another at some point in time. I feel very good about where the court is right now and what I'm doing. I think I've still got some things to contribute. So for at least a while, I plan to be around as the Chief Justice.
And when history looks back on the Mike Heavican Supreme Court, how do you think it will be remembered?
Well, I hope it is remembered as a point in time where we asked ourselves, is there a way we can do this better? That is what we urge our judges to do all the time. It is sometimes vexing to me that essentially we have a court system that was set up to be a model system in 1870 or 1880 or 1890. And we've done some evolution since then, but there needs to be more evolution done. The legal profession is about to change, is changing very rapidly, and is about to change even more rapidly because people want to go to their computers to solve their legal problems. And we have to respond to that. And we also have to be able to run the court system more efficiently because there are not enough tax dollars to go to all of the things that need tax support. So we, like every other part of state government and county government, need to be as efficient as possible, and frankly, right now we're not.
Chief Justice Mike Heavican, thank you so much for your time and for joining us on Speaking of Nebraska.
Thank you very much.
This interview with Chief Justice Mike Heavican is available on our website. You can find it at netnebraska.org/Speaking of Nebraska. Each week on Speaking of Nebraska, we'll bring you some highlights from the Nebraska legislature. Fred Knapp covers the legislature and state government for NET, and he joins us now. Fred, this was the week the Revenue Committee came out with its big proposal on taxes and revenue. Kind of walk us through it. Break it down for us.
There are a lot of moving parts to this. This is all aimed at property tax relief, which has been a big issue for the last 3 years. And so this proposal would increase state sales taxes by 3/4 cents. It would increase cigarette taxes by 36 cents a pack, tax pop, candy, bottled water, and a bunch of services that are currently untaxed: moving, storage, plumbing, heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, and pet services, not livestock. And all of this is aimed at a 50% increase in state school aid, which in turn, they say, will translate to about a 20% reduction in school property taxes. Since school property taxes are about 60% of your total property tax bill, doing a little higher math, that would be about a 12% reduction in overall property taxes, depending on where you live.
So you reported on this, and the story was on our Facebook page, and there was quite a reaction to your story. I just want to give you some of the comments that from people who wrote in. One compared Nebraska to trying to be like California and New York. Another one simply opposed raising taxes on cigarettes, bottled water, and candy. One person said we just have too many taxes in Nebraska, and another one just said it's plain, quote unquote, stupid. Now, Governor Ricketts also had a strong reaction to this.
Yeah, he said it was the largest tax increase in Nebraska history, and he was shocked that they were even considering it. He's got his own proposal, which is much more modest in the short run. It's a $50 million increase in the existing property tax credit, which would translate on a $100,000 house to an increase in the write-off that the state, in effect, pays for people from $86 to $106. That's not enough for a lot of farmers who've been complaining about 150% rise in their taxes, although they would obviously get more than the owner of a $100,000 house. So a lot of people are picking apart the individual components of it. We'll see what the overall result is when people get together for a public hearing on this next week.
And let's talk a little bit about that. Now that the proposal is out there, kind of walk us through what happens next.
Okay, well, the next thing is next Wednesday, there will be a public hearing on this at 4 p.m., and people will have their say as to what they like or don't like about it. And then, presumably, it'll be tweaked or adjusted according to what people hear. And if it gets out of committee, which is not a sure thing, not everybody's on board with this, then it'll go to the floor, and in all likelihood, there'll be a filibuster by opponents, so it'll require a 2/3 vote, or 33 out of the 49 senators to pass, and it would also probably have to overcome a veto by Governor Ricketts, and that takes 30 votes.
Now, schools are going to get a $500 million increase in state aid, so do you expect them to support this?
Well, I think they'll support the concept. I'm not sure whether they'll support the specific way that it's being formulated. It's very complicated. I brought along just a paragraph, which I'll read, and stop me when you lose track of this. The inflation rate yield for each local system shall equal the sum of, 1, the local formula contribution for such local system for the school fiscal year immediately preceding.
I better stop you now.
Okay.
So
you get an idea.
They're obviously keeping their eye on it as well. So is this issue going to dominate the rest of the session?
I think that it will be sort of the cloud overhanging things. It won't be the entire subject matter, but it'll be the sort of the bottom line that people will have in mind.
All right, Fred Knapp, thank you very much for stopping by today.
All right, thank you.
All right, and if you want a daily update on the legislature during the session, Fred has that for you. Make sure you listen for our legislative updates on NET Radio at 5:45 and 7:45 in the morning and 5:45 in the evening. You can also find our legislative updates on our website at netnebraska.org/news. Last month, Nebraska was struck by severe flooding, and the impact of that will be felt for years to come. Each week on Speaking of Nebraska, we'll bring you an update on the recovery efforts going on in our state. Bill Kelly has been one of our reporters who's been focused on the story from the very beginning. He joins us now. Bill, The goal of the government from the beginning is always to get money in the hands of people quickly so they can start the rebuilding and the recovering. Is that happening in Nebraska?
Well, this is the point where we're starting to talk about numbers. We've heard a lot of individual stories, but now the real important story is, as you say, what money has actually ended up in folks' hands. We have a graphic up here. There are 27 counties and one tribe, the Ponca Nation, that have been made eligible for FEMA individual assistance. And there's a difference between individual assistance, that's the type any American citizen or those who have been infected can apply for. Public assistance, that which local governments might apply for, is a separate issue. For the individual assistance to date, 4,800 applicants have applied for FEMA individual assistance. Almost a quarter of those are just from Dodge County, where the city of Fremont is. That's the highest county response rate in the state. FEMA individual assistance approved as of Thursday. $18 million, $18.5 million. That's on average for the number of people who have applied, about $3,000 to $4,000 per applicant. That may not seem a lot, but that's also, as people say, that's the money they paid their taxes for. Most of that is housing assistance, everything from temporary housing to repairs. And FEMA has visited over 12,000 homes around the state and in the tribal nations as they assess the damage around the state.
But FEMA's having a bit of a perplexing issue in that they say that they're having trouble getting people to actually apply for these funds.
That is true. Part of that may be the numbers are perhaps a little lower than they would have thought. Part of that is people think it's going to be too complex. Part of it is FEMA's reputation, which has been hurt in the past. But the fact is, if you don't apply, you aren't going to get any money at all. So they are urging people to do it. There have been a couple of glitches in the system where, I shouldn't say glitches in the system, there have been issues with people applying and then being denied. FEMA is emphatic that it would help so much if they get denied online to please call their 800 number that's available or visit the local site, because there could just be a problem with paperwork or insurance or something along that line that's keeping people from getting approved online as opposed to with a human interaction.
And in the few seconds we have remaining, you've been traveling the state looking at all of this damage. What's the one image or what stands out for you from what you've seen?
I think what's interesting is there are times when it looks like there isn't a whole lot going on, but then when you get close to these rivers and streams, you can tell that there has been a real impact around the state, and people are finally getting to the point where their communities are getting back to normal.
Bill Kelly will continue to cover the recovery efforts in Nebraska, and we'll have him back again to update us on Speaking of Nebraska.
Great. Thank you, Dennis.
All right. We do want to highlight some of our recent signature story reporting, and that includes our flooding coverage. Allison Mullenkamp reported on the impact of the flooding on Nebraska's upcoming tourism season. And in another signature story, Brandon McDermott talked with researchers from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln about their study that looks into the well-being of ethnic minorities in rural communities across the state. You can find those stories and more on our website at netnebraska.org/news. And you can always follow us on social media for the latest news and features on Nebraska. Just go to NET News Nebraska on both Facebook and Twitter for our stories. That's it for this edition of Speaking of Nebraska. Special thanks to Nebraska Supreme Court Chief Justice Mike Hebekin, as well as our own Fred Knapp and Bill Kelly for joining us. Next week, our focus will be on Yazidi refugees in Nebraska. Congressman Jeff Fortenberry and a local representative from the Yazidi community in the state will be our guests. I'm NET News Director Dennis Kellogg. Thanks for joining us, and have a good night.